Is it on or not?
I can turn it on.
You're gonna turn it on? Oh, shit, he says it's going.
Anxious to see how much snow we actually get. I'm anxious to see how much snow we actually get. Then they make all kinds of predictions, it'll probably be a dust.
Let me just get confirmation from you.
I've seen those dustbins.
Before, yeah. Well, it seems like when they tell you, it's dust.
Anytime you're ready.
When they tell you,
We're ready when you are.
Meeting of the Town Monument Planning Commission, please come to order. Staff, call the roll.
Chairman Glover, noted absent. Chairman Dick,
Present.
Commissioner Kemple, noted absent. Commissioner Leschnat, noted absent. Commissioner Hours,
here,
Commissioner Strapp,
Present?
Commissioner Wilhelmi,
Here.
Commissioner King,
here.
Commissioner Lewis, noted absent. We do have a quorum.
Very good. We all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Next order of business is approval of the minutes from the meeting of August 14th. Anyone have any comments on the minutes? Can I hear a motion?
Move approval of the minutes of the August 14th meeting.
I second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Our first order of business will be a site plan application and final plat application for the Jackson Creek North filing number 2. What we will do is hear a presentation from staff on this application, and the commissioners will have an opportunity to ask questions. And then we will hear from the applicant, and then we'll hold a public hearing where the audience can come forward and make any comments or ask questions. Jennifer.
Good evening, Chairman, members of the Planning Commission. So as you mentioned, I have one public hearing item for you tonight, Jackson Creek North number 2. So to give you some perspective of where we're talking about, here's a really simple vicinity map. Essentially, we are talking about the area which is directly east or behind the Jackson Creek Senior Living, which is on Jackson Creek Parkway, north of Harness Road. Harness Road, as you know, is currently being extended to the west.
Do you
Sir?
have a graphic up right now?
Yes,
Is anyone seeing that graphic? Is it only there?
now,
Okay, it's not there.
Yeah, we don't have anything.
It's not there.
your monitors aren't on?
Yeah, they're not.
That one's not on either.
Okay. We will
Sorry
take a
about
quick second to
Thanks.
fix this little issue.
There you go.
Very
Is that those at least?
Okay.
I'm not sure what the board, remote control. So the commissioners can now see there is one TV working for the audience. We are not 100% sure where the remote controls are to be able to turn on the TVs tonight. As you know, this room gets used by a lot of folks. Okay, I will go back and chat about where this property is located. again, north of Harness Road. Harness Road west of Bowstring is being extended currently, right as part of the Jackson Creek Filing Number 1, Jackson Creek North Filing Number 1 project. And that'll extend between the self-storage project and Jackson Creek Senior Living project. So a little summary of this project for you. This is a pretty straightforward project, so I'm going to summarize for you tonight, but we can certainly get into more detail if necessary. So approximately 26 acres, just a little bit less. The zoning on this property is Regency Park, PRD 4 and PRD 6. Those are both residential zonings with just slightly different density requirements. So the proposals for 85 single-family detached lots. There are a couple tracks in there as well as public right-of-way. There's also a park site included in the site plan and the final plat. That park site was reviewed and approved by Triview and would ultimately be maintained by the Triview Metropolitan District. So this map, I've taken an excerpt from the Regency Park Sixth Amendment zoning, right, that most recent Regency Park zoning, and just kind of shown you where that general area is of where we're talking about tonight. Again, essentially sort of half PRD 4, half PRD 6 on the north side of Harness Road. I know this one is very, very difficult to look at. I did want to include it just so that you could see this is the actual document, right? There's 3 roadways extending north from Harness Road, but I think this one is actually a little bit easier to look at. It's a little bit more simplified. It obviously doesn't have the exact detail, but I think it gives you a little bit better picture of what's being proposed. Right, so you've got the Remington Hill development to the southeast, Jackson Creek Filing Number 1 to the southwest, and then here on the north side, Jackson Creek Filing Number 2. Again, 85 residential lots, nothing particularly unusual. Everything conforms to the allowable zoning. So I thought there might be a few questions. I know staff had a few questions about roadway connections through here, right? They're close to some other roadways, and so town staff, Triview, the Triview district manager, as well as the developer, we've sort of all talked about this, and essentially with the next filing you will absolutely be seeing some connections to Cloverleaf and or to Higbee Road. On this particular one, it makes sense to connect to Harness. There's a couple access points, and that was found to be sufficient. So I always like to remind everyone, right, where all these projects have gone, all the folks that have seen them, commented, reviewed. This is sort of just a little summary listing here for you. Right, our 911 folks for El Paso and Teller County approved the street names. It was reviewed by floodplain. There's a note on there in relation to the Air Force Academy. Obviously the Fire District, Triview District, right, all these folks. So everyone has had the chance to review and comment on this project. Outstanding issues or concerns. So this is a use by right in this area, right? Single family residential. It meets the density requirements. All the applicable code requirements are met. Staff is unaware of any outstanding issues that you should be concerned with. Therefore, staff does recommend approval of this project. It's a site plan and a final plat. And it does comply with all the standards and criteria for approval.
Could you go back to the one of whoever has approved it? That one slide?
Public will have a chance to come forward in a moment when we hold the
I
public.
just want to see the slide again.
We'll bring it up later. Thank you.
Okay.
Does the applicant want to make any comments?
They are here. Mr. Taylor, would you like to comment and or present?
So my name is Mike Taylor, Commissioners, and I represent the applicant Vision Development. Again, as noted, we're seeking approval of a site plan and final plat for the 85 lot subdivision known as Jackson Creek North Filing 2. I don't have anything to add to Jennifer's outline, but I am here available to answer questions.
Very good.
Commissioner, I had a question for Jennifer.
Yeah, good, please.
On one of the graphics there,
Mm-hmm.
it was noted park tract.
Mhm.
And I was just looking through some of the documents that we received
Mm-hmm.
earlier. I didn't see park tract on those documents. Am I just missing something?
I called it out as park. It is listed, it's still a tract, so it is listed as a use under there. And it's also included at the back of the site plan packet. It provides some illustrations of how that will be equipped.
So it is called out?
Yes.
At least, not
Yes.
just here in red, but
Mhm.
otherwise? Okay.
Any of the commissioners have any other questions?
I do.
Go ahead.
I'm having technical difficulties. I believe it's,
We're all having technical difficulties tonight.
I
I think we're preparing for the snow.
it's glitching on me. Page 4 of the site plan.
Okay.
There are some lines that go north to south from lot 9 through lot 16. What are those?
I don't have the full site. I can bring it up if we
I'm
need to.
assuming what we're talking about is grading contours.
No.
Page 4 would be the grading plan.
They're straight. Like, they are not grading. It's, I understand grading contours on, but these ones are straight as if it's is it underground utilities? Is it plumbing? These are straight. This is not a
So
contour.
I'm looking at
topography.
block 9. Is that
Lot
correct?
9, it goes north through
Just
lot
north.
16. And they're straight lines, and I've never seen that on I just need clarification as to what
What
that,
block are you in?
right here. Lot 9 through lot 16, see these lines?
I think that's on page 4 here.
Maybe it's not page 4, it's,
I don't, maybe she means this.
Yeah, that's exactly what I mean. What page is that on yours?
4,
Commissioner?
4 of
Is it-
10,
And our-
it's the filing for,
it's not topography lines, it's not great, I've never seen these lines, so.
So just to clarify again, is it block 1 we're looking at?
No, it's lot 9 through,
Oh,
Okay,
it's-
lot 9 through 16 on block 1?
let's.
Is it the furthest left on the page?
Mike, I
Yes,
think
sir.
it's these lines
Yep.
right here.
Yes,
It's-
exactly, that's it, Jennifer.
Yeah, so those are contour lines. Those are basically the contour lines. Those are walkout lots
So that's steep grade then.
for walkouts. So
Holy
essentially,
heavens.
that's how a walkout lot generally looks from an engineering standpoint. It'll slope down and then that opens up the back of the
Yeah,
lot
but
for the
typically there's
walkout.
more gradual fall than.
Would you,
Not for
Do
a
you-
walkout.
would you like to, and we've got our civil engineer here if you'd like to address that.
Can-
Yeah, Chad
Can
comes
you,
back from-
this is just a new grading line that I've never
Sure.
experienced before.
Yeah, Chad Kuzbeck, Westworks Engineering on behalf of the applicant. Those are walkout lots. It's typically 8 feet of fall at a 4-to-1 slope. And that allows, kind of a 2-story in the front and then the basement is exposed in the back. And that's a standard template we've used for decades.
Typically, see up to the north where it says boundary, TIP, to the right of lot 19, and you have the little splotch grading lines.
Yep.
That's what I'm typically used to seeing as far as a grading pattern.
Mhm.
So, okay.
Yeah, we have a series of templates that we use depending on how the grade wants to work on a lot. Walkouts are pretty desirable,
Correct.
but sometimes
Especially
they
west
don't work.
facing.
Yeah, a lot of times they don't work, so they drain all the way, every lot drains from back to front, or they drain half to the front, half to the back. There's just different scenarios as to how the grading works from lot to lot.
Okay, thanks for the clarification. And then, question in regards to sidewalks. Can you help me identify sidewalks in the passage, especially in regards to Bowstring Way, that main thoroughway, heading to the high school? Are we detached sidewalks, are we attached sidewalks? What width are we doing on the sidewalks? I did not see anything in regards to that.
I think that we're gonna try to pull up the street cross-section, it's probably in there, and you know what page, Mike?
It should be on the first page.
Page one?
Page
Correct.
one?
Correct, one, page one of the site plan.
There they are.
And bowstring would be, I don't mean to speak for staff, but bowstring would be the minor collector cross-section. So you'll see there, it's depicted as a detached sidewalk,
There we go.
which is typical of the minor collector.
So what's that one over there?
Yeah, I think so. These are the internal ones.
And are we doing it tracked, the tracks are gonna be the sidewalks?
No.
Sorry.
The tracks are not the sidewalks.
Okay, so that's in addition to the sidewalks.
Mhm.
So. Okay. Walk me through, can you, because this is not working very well. Can you walk me through the neighborhood to the north, from the south to the north on sidewalks, please?
Okay, so
Let me get a different
if we're talking
graphic.
about
One second.
Bowstring Road,
Yeah, Bowstring going
okay,
north
so
to
basically
south.
the right-of-way for Bowstring Road would meet that detail that's called out on page one of the site plan for the typical section of a minor collector.
Okay,
So what you see there is basically a 34-foot wide paved section. You've got curb and gutter then to the outside of those. You've got your buffer in there, which is typically works out to be about 3.5 feet. And then you've got a 5-foot detached sidewalk. That would basically be your span of the 60-foot right-of-way for the minor collector road, okay? Anything then shown outside of that, which in most cases would be a landscape tract, would be to the outside of that right-of-way. So as depicted in here, what you would see consistently along Bowstring Road, and it would be consistent with existing Bowstring Road, is again, you would have a paved section, curb and gutter, a buffer between of about 3.5 feet between curb and gutter, back of curb to the detached sidewalk, which would be 5 feet wide, and then beyond that, you would have a landscape tract.
awesome.
I think the short answer is there is sidewalks continuing the entire length.
Correct, and it's on both sides of the roads. That's
Mhm.
my clarification, because
Correct.
Yes.
this is,
Correct, there would be sidewalk on, so this minor collector is simply the detail that comes out of the roadway and design criteria manual for the town of Monument.
Okay.
So anytime we're showing that as an installation, it will be installed pursuant to that, and as noted on here, you're gonna have those same details, the
Yeah.
buffer and the detached sidewalk on both sides.
both sides of Bowstring.
Correct,
So that kids can walk to school.
correct.
Yep.
Excellent, thank you. Those are my questions.
So will the sidewalks on Bowstring, as they are now, just visually in my mind, continue into this new development in the same, as you described?
That's correct.
Yes.
Okay. It's same sort of ranch style fencing? like-
Correct. The fencing is pretty standard. We've been using pretty much the same fence detail out there for years, and that will be the same.
And then is there a boundary between Jackson Creek Senior Living and the homes that are adjacent to it?
So there's a
Or is that gonna-
buffer, and there's also fencing along there that separates that property line. It's not called out. Jennifer noted the park. Another feature.
You can kind of see it easiest on this one.
Yeah, another feature of this subdivision, so if you recall, they're exactly there. So that would be tract A, where she's pointing right now would be tract A of Jackson Creek North Filing Number 1. That's a 30-foot tract on which there was dedicated an easement for El Paso County trail use. So ultimately, there will be a trail that goes up there, and then what you see as she's panning up is basically the extension of that. So again, you have the buffer of that 30 feet for that trail linkage between Jackson Creek and Assisted Living in the back of property line for this subdivision.
Okay, so that was, thank you for that, and that trail as it gets to Harness, that picks
Down
up
here.
somewhere on the other side of Harness, is that the
Correct.
idea?
Crosses goes to
Correct.
here.
So the idea would be ultimately a continuous trail.
Going through that spot between Jackson Creek Self-Storage, the Vista
Yes.
Apartments, and
Correct.
exiting, I remember talking about
Yes,
that.
that's
Okay.
correct.
Commissioners have any other Questions, comments?
And just to ask, on Bowstring Road it's the same width as it
Mhm.
continues north? Okay. It's hard to tell. And are there any stop signs or any other traffic mitigation planned right now for Bowstring Harness or Bowstring through Rambling Oak, anything like that?
So right now, the intersection at Bowstring and Harness is designed to be just traditional four-way controlled stop sign. We've had continuous conversations with Triview, who has responsibility for roads there, about potential future roundabouts and things of that nature. But at this point in time, it's just simply designed based upon the traffic impact analysis to be a four-way stop.
And this might be jumping the gun, but what is the plan for Bowstring regarding a connector, at least right now? I know we touched on that a little bit.
It'll connect up to Higby Road at some point.
With connecting, yes, but like traffic mitigation or other thoughts of that, given that, again, that concern about a high school throughway, as it may turn into.
We'll work.
There will be other intersections. Cloverleaf
Yeah.
will intersect it, and it'll be handled, at least at this point, just as Harness is with a four-way stop. So I guess I would just suggest that a four-way stop is as good of a traffic calming, if not better, than a roundabout. Roundabout, the traffic doesn't stop at all.
Sure. Is there actually a plan as to how Bowstring's gonna run right now, or that's just kind of in the ether?
I have.
Good.
So this plan that I had mentioned before, this is that Regency Park Sixth Amendment zoning plan. These are not exact alignments, but you can see, right, ultimately, Bowstring connects north, Cloverleaf connects through both directions. Similarly, Harness will connect all the way through, to the east up to Higby Road at some point. Again, these are not exact alignments. That'll be worked out with Triview as we move forward, right, because these are ultimately their roadways. But we have definitely had preliminary discussions with the town and Triview and the developer on how these, will continue to develop in the future. But those roadway cost sections are not changing. Those are going to stay exactly the same.
And that small gray dash, it looks like it says trail line. Is that a proposed trail? Am I looking at that right? I know it's a little small to see. I keep seeing it. I like what I see for sure, but
This plan calls out some different little areas where it's showing the densities. And so, right, this was originally a colored map, and these were little colored boundaries. So I think if you're looking at these little lines right here, no, those aren't trails. That's not what this map was intended to do.
the darker
This is
dashes, I'm sorry.
massive, this over here.
So,
Keep going. It looks like.
yeah, right there,
The boundaries of the
you see
district.
that gray dash to the right of the circle? Go right, Jennifer. Right there, stop.
Oh.
There you go. If you kind of follow that, it's labeled trail line.
And it goes through.
Yes, it does say that. It's essentially following the open space in there.
Mm-hmm.
But again, this is a high level plan, and that's why we come back with these specific plans. This is over 1,600 acres shown on this plan, so right, we come back with the specifics for you.
Just figured I'd ask.
Sure, of course. Well, right, and right, there is that trail that kind of
Right,
that goes
right.
down there. That's that connection.
Right.
Any other questions?
Just a simple question, do you have like a price point you're targeting at?
So price point in here, we would see as probably being in the PRD 6, which would basically be west of the future extension of Bowstring, would be similar to Jackson Creek North Filing 1, which we anticipate those being mid-4s to low 5s.
All right, thanks.
You got a question? Are the connections to Higby Road contingent on some of the same problems that they have for the connection of,
I think I know where you're going with that
Legal.
question.
uh-huh.
The connections will be made. Will they be made next week or next year or in 10 years? I don't know the answer to that. Yes, Higby Road is currently controlled by the county, and so we will have to work with the county to, get those access permits and those exact alignments. We're simply not there yet, and so it's a little bit less of an issue than maybe, which has been previously discussed in other hearings. They will connect through at some point in the future.
Thank you. Any other questions? Any other questions, commissioners? Thank you very much. We'd like to open the meeting for our public comments, our public hearing at this time. If anyone would like to ask questions or speak to the application, we ask you to come forward and write your name
The
on.
list is in the back.
Oh, it's in the back?
Yeah.
Okay.
Just to make it easier, so they don't
Just
have to
tell
wait.
us your name and
Back there.
your address, if you
Sure.
would, please.
Hi, good evening. Mike Robbins, 16521 Curled Oak Drive. Could you do me a favor and put up the slide that you just had with the zoning areas? The Park 6, I think it was called.
Mike, I'm sorry, what, Curled Oaks?
Curled Oak.
Okay.
16521 Curled Oak. Thank you, sir. Thanks, Larry. Will do. So what I'm interested in, as Commissioner Wilhelmy expressed, talking about what the mitigation is. My house actually backs up to Bowstring Road. Great real estate advice is you never buy in a place that you think traffic's gonna get less. So when we bought the house, we knew, yeah, eventually there's gonna be additional traffic that goes back there. So I'm not so concerned about that. We have a decent buffer zone. Love the plan that the developer has to ensure there's sidewalks on both sides. I see the landscape. Unfortunately, the landscape behind our house, I think they planted that, and then we had the drought, so we lost some of those trees. Oh well, we're doing the best we can on our side of the property line. My concern is that, and I experienced this, I intended to be here 15 minutes before, hoping to catch a couple of commissioners beforehand. But the experience I had coming down Jackson Creek today, which is a 2-lane road right now, and thank you to TriView, who is making that 4-lane. That is a fantastic thing that's gonna happen. And it's designed to handle the amount of traffic. There's a football game going on right now. Traffic was backed up all the way past where the intersection to Cloverleaf is, all the way almost to Bowstring on that road, and the amount of traffic. When Bowstring goes through, where do we think that traffic's gonna go? That neighborhood, while it may be a minor collector, is not designed, nor should it be designed, when you have intention of kids walking to school along that path. When you have a park that is immediately up against Bowstring there. When you're gonna have children that potentially are playing at that park. Thursday nights, Friday nights, mornings of school. That road, I get that you say, yeah, that was done, it was a final plat. That's how it's gonna be. What I'm asking the planning commission to do is to think ahead, not wait for that next plat, and think how you're going to control that now so that the developer with requirements, so maybe one of the approvals of this is with an approval with a mitigation plan that comes into play for the next thing that, I don't know, putting in a traffic circle at Bowstring Road and Harness, how easy does anybody think that's really gonna be right now? Yeah, I don't think that's gonna be ever done. There's not enough real estate there. There are power boxes nearly on the corner there. Why not demand that to occur in the plat now? Don't wait for it. What I'm asking for is plan for that to go through so that you have the mitigation, so that you can slow that traffic down. 4-way stop, great idea. How many people were in high school, and how heavy was your foot when you were in high school when you came to a stop sign? And you have 25 cars that pull up, stop, and go. And that's gonna be a stop sign right by a park. That 18-year-old, that 16-year-old that comes up to that stop sign, drops the hammer because they're in a hurry to get to their homecoming game, to get to the dance, to get to school in the morning. You gotta make it so that it's not the prime way they wanna go. You look at that map, that's the shortest distance between 2 points. Every high school kid from south going to that high school is gonna be dropping the hammer coming down that road. I'm asking the planning commission now, before there's concrete poured, while you can still affect that change, to make sure that happens, whether you offset it, and I've been in neighborhoods where they actually did this. You had a straightaway that was supposed to go straight through that went from an elementary school all the way to the junior high. And that was about a 2-mile run. If they'd have left that straight, there'd been parents dropping their kids off at elementary school, dropping the hammer to make it the 2 miles to drop their kid off. They made it so in order to get through, you had to go over, and then go through. 2 stop signs, it didn't look like the straightest distance between 2 points, so you were forced to go, you know what? I'm gonna hit the 4-lane road, I'm making a right turn and a right turn, I'm still good. I'm asking the planning commission to consider that and force that decision. I believe that is the planning commission's duty, and I think a developer, they're developing it's a great price point. I have no problem with the homes in there. I have no problem with the quality of homes that are going into there right now. We knew there was gonna be houses. I'm just asking to consider how you force that. I get that it's a minor collector, but let's force that hand now while you still have control. Don't go in and hope in 15 years Tri-View's gonna come in there and suddenly be able to go, oh, well, I'm gonna do 25 feet of your yard and 25 feet of your yard so I can put a roundabout in there, because that's not gonna happen. We all know that. Anyway, I appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Robbins.
Thank you.
Anyone else would like to make a comment or?
I'm Tina Jessup, I'm 16513 Curl Drive. I have a question, could you go back to the slide that had the approval, or who all had approved it? Is 911 the police department? Or is that just 911?
Would the commission like me to answer that question? 911 is not the police department. 911 is 911 El Paso Teller County. They approve addressing and street names for 911 operations.
Okay, has the police department looked at what kind of criteria this is going to impact on them? Have they had a heads up?
Has police department looked at the project?
The police department is not, doesn't typically comment on our projects. They are certainly aware of them.
I think it would be a good idea if the planning commission would include water, utilities, electricity, fire department, schools, and the police department to see what kind of an impact all of these peoples and the housing is going to have on them as an upfront planning, instead of them waiting until all of the houses are in and it's, oh my goodness, what are we gonna do with all of these people?
Thank you very much for your suggestion. Anyone else like to make a comment? Well, seeing none, I'll close the public hearing and ask again if the commissioners have any further questions about the project.
I might suggest, Mr. Chairman, that to ask the applicant if he has any rebuttal, based on what he heard in public comment.
Good.
Do you have any further comments, Mr. Taylor?
Thank you.
Okay. Then you're at the table.
So I have a question for Jennifer. So just to be clear and just to kind of answer her question. all of those agencies do look at this project with the exception of the police department, correct?
They do. They're all sent those. We also have a internal development review team meeting. The police department is invited and welcome to attend those. They certainly have other duties, but they are aware of our projects, and we'd be happy to share any additional information that they find necessary.
Thank you.
Did D38 have any additional input other than a go-ahead regarding the number of houses?
They did not. They did not request, obviously, any school land. Therefore, we would collect a cash in lieu for the school dedication.
Good.
And regarding the park, is there any more detail about the park? I understand there's a dedicated space for it, but any thoughts on
There
that?
are details in the site plan, and the landscape portion of the site plan. There are details. We can't pull it up if we need to, but they are there. They've been reviewed by TriView, and they were approved by TriView.
Can we see them?
Yeah, there's a park area, there's a playground, there's parking
Okay.
spots.
That's some nice detail right here.
Anyone have any further comments or?
Just one other question. If there was a roundabout to be put into bowstring and harness, is there sufficient space right now?
So we've had that conversation with TriView, and essentially, I believe at this point that when you look at the right-of-way that's been dedicated there with the tracks, that it would be sufficient, but our agreement with them is if at some point in time they need additional with regard to these new subdivisions, we will provide that. One comment I guess I would make with regard to the roundabout and those things, one thing for the commissioners to be aware of is that TriView and the town have been very active in terms of traffic analysis throughout the remainder of the residential, basically everything to the east side of Jackson Creek Parkway. They've each enlisted independent engineers, as have we as the developer, who over the last year have all had input from the standpoint of, and a big part of it obviously goes to the expansion of Jackson Creek Parkway, signalization of that, how traffic is gonna work into that. So it's an active and ongoing conversation, and I would just point out the fact that the decisions that are made from the standpoint of intersections are not made in a vacuum, that there's been a lot of discussion about that from the standpoint of what they believe is best for traffic flow overall within the subdivisions as they exist now and future subdivisions.
Thank you.
Commissioner Wilhelmi, I do have a couple of the park graphics for you.
Thank you.
So this sort of shows the parking area, the playground area, like an open field area, and then there are details on the next page as well, right, the type of, generic type of play equipment, again, the parking area. So it's essentially outlined, but not so specifically that a brand change can't happen, because we've had that as well.
Thank you.
Considering the gentleman's concern about the extension of bowstring, yeah, I don't see how the planning commission can put any restrictions on what we're doing here. But I think we can ask you in the planning department, as things go forward, to design that in a manner to cause folks to want to go the 4-lane instead of the bowstring. Is that reasonable?
Well, yes,
As we go forward?
except the traffic and the roadways are all TriView, not Town of Monument.
That's correct.
Influence over it?
When, as you can kind of see, there's not a grid pattern, but there's a pattern that spreads traffic out. Once you design that as best you can, you can't necessarily prevent people from going where they want to go. The preference has to tell them where to go. So if you're gonna go north on I-25 and you're in Remington Hills, I would suggest it'd be easiest to go to Jackson Creek and north, rather than Bowstring to Higbee once it's ready for that. But it would provide an opportunity. Some people will, some people will go to Harness.
Well, yeah, but I think the gentleman's point was very good. The design of a road can encourage persons to make that decision or to make the decision to go that way.
I think there would be a number of other folks who would not like to see additional traffic go on Jackson Creek Parkway rather than additional roadway connections, right, that we desperately need. But we can certainly, the staff doesn't design those roadways. We can certainly be aware that there's concern.
Because we do have some influence over that, don't we?
Some?
Of course we do. We think that our things are moving along adequately at this time.
So you will keep that in consideration as you're looking at the future of that.
Always, we listen to our consultants that look at the traffic reports, and we listen to TriView and to get their input as to what, as the persons that will maintain the road, what they would like to see in terms of that ongoing maintenance.
Mr. Developer, your next filing north of here is going to include more than likely Cloverleaf and Bowstring together. When you plan, would you please consider putting a roundabout at Cloverleaf and Bowstring for the future, because you own the land, so the future development, please consider that in your next planning process.
Okay, and I will commit, we will have that conversation with TriView. Again, as a developer and as an applicant, we're basically subject to what they impose from that standpoint, but we will certainly have that conversation. And again, I would like to reiterate that there has been a lot of volume in terms of engineers looking at that internal traffic and the design of that. So I'm very confident that the engineers that TriView has engaged, that the town has engaged, and that we have engaged are very well versed in that, and that are looking at, again, a design in the future for all the remaining residential that's gonna make sense in that regard. So I will answer your question and say, yes, we will absolutely be at the table in that conversation, and we will introduce that concept if it hasn't already been.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Appreciate it.
Mr. Commissioner, may I make a statement?
Mr. Chairman?
Public
I-
hearing is.
I hate to speak out, but these conversations once we're at the table, need to occur within yourselves and with staff, not outside of that. You've taken the comments from the public, you've taken the testimony from the applicant. If you have questions of us, we'll do the best that we can to answer them. But procedurally, that's what keeps us in an orderly fashion.
So does anyone have any other questions?
I'm not opposed to reopening it real quickly. I mean, just the idea that we're pretty much on time. We have one item to discuss tonight, and we're getting close to it, so I'm not opposed to reopening, just for your information.
So I have a question for Jennifer.
Sure.
So as the new zoning process comes into the town, and I know you're dealing somewhat with the consultants, is there a plan for having specific areas with specific minimum lot sizes? Or has it even gotten that far yet? And the reason I say it just seems like, to me, the lot sizes are starting to get kind of small, and when I see stuff under like 7,500 feet, just for the area, it seems like those lot sizes are getting fairly small. This particular subdivision is pretty consistent with the contiguous areas there, so, but as a general rule, it doesn't seem like there really is that minimum lot size for specific areas. I know that, you know, they should vary depending upon the terrain and things like that. Is that something that's coming up?
I would say yes. And in some ways, we do have that now in terms of, right, it's based on density. And so that sort of dictates, right, how big or small your lots are. I think, yes, that is something that will be discussed as we move forward through the, right, new land development code will be some basic standards and things like that. I think a lot of what this commission and our board have seen in recent years have been plan developments, which didn't default to, right, basic bulk standards in the code, which a lot of us are more used to, which I think is maybe more what you're referring to. So I think there's definitely a possibility that we may move in that direction of some more typical lot standards, right? Frontage, size, and things like that. But again, I would say ultimately right now we're still at the same place because we're doing it through density, which will still be handled. You can have both,
Right.
but definitely it's something that we're aware of.
What about bulk plane? Is there gonna be some bulk plane requirements in that, or have you got that far yet?
We certainly aren't that far yet.
We need to conclude this filing. Does anyone want to make a motion?
I just had one more question. What's the distance between houses average? I know I think there's 3 different levels, but is it 20 feet, is it?
Pikes Peak Regional Building, the 5-foot minimum from the foundation to the lot line is 5-foot minimum per Pikes Peak Regional Building.
Between houses?
Between the foundation and so between houses, it could be 10. As minimum wise, 10 is the minimum.
Is that what's here?
No, there was larger lots.
I think
There are some larger lots. I can bring up a lot
There were larger
typical.
lots.
Let me see if this helps.
But it depends on what product, did they put a 40-foot or a 50-foot product on some, so, but per Pikes Peak Regional, it could be 5 feet.
Most of
From
that
the
is
foundation.
fire department
Yeah.
requirements.
So 10 feet is the minimum that is required.
Right, so here's some typical lot standards on the way, right, where the building envelope can go. We do not have exact models, right? So it's gonna depend on the product that you put on there, right, the exact distance. But it has to fit within the building envelope that's laid out on these lot typicals, right, which is this, right, the inner square. So they vary a bit, but you're always gonna have a minimum of 10 feet.
Do we hear a motion?
I move approval of the site plan and final plat for Jackson Creek North filing number 2.
Is there a
I'll second.
All those in favor?
But we need to do a roll call vote, please.
Roll call.
Roll call.
Yes, please.
Yes.
Chairman Dick,
Yes.
Commissioner King,
So I just want to make one brief comment for the record. I do think this project is consistent with the adjacent properties and, but again, I do want to just for the record, so that the Board of Trustees, when they get this, make note of it, that at some point, I personally would like to see some type of minimum lot size that would be probably exceeding the 6,500 square foot lots that I see on this site. But with that, I would vote yes.
Commissioner Wilhelmie,
Just the note to the board regarding traffic mitigation and the concerns from the community. I'll vote yes.
Commissioner Strop,
Yes.
Commissioner Hours,
Yes.
motion passes 5-0.
Thank you very much. At this time in the agenda, we ask for anyone in the audience who has a comment to make for items that are not on tonight's agenda to come forward at this time. Yes.
Chairman Dick, again, Mike Robbins, 16521 Cold Oak Drive. Not on the agenda, but I would like to, just my observation here. I'm an engineer, right? I do studies, I do analysis. Everything I look at is analytics and it's by the book, right? That's what engineers do, that's what consultants do. Consultants come in and they give advice on what they believe is the best thing based on the guidelines that are provided to them by whatever organization hires them. And in this case, I believe consultants are hired for the town of Monument. And I believe the way you, as the commission, can influence traffic mitigation as a criteria is through those guidelines to those consultants. The planning department gets a consultant that says, hey, I want to know how I can maximize my use of this land. I want to know how I can maximize traffic flow through this area in the most efficient manner. Analytics, I'm going to go with baseball reference here, right? Fantastic to be analytics for 162 games a year. Sometimes in the playoffs, you have to make a decision by your gut that says, I know what the analytics say. I know what we're trying to do. In the case of traffic flow for the entirety of the community, that consultant, which and unfortunately our developer departed, also works with the developers. And my question to the commission is, do you want to have a community that is driven by consultants and developers that are maximizing the amount of property they can sell, which reduces that lot line to a 10-foot distance? Drive up Highway 83 and look at Castle Rock. Highway 83, when you look, Castle Rock, as you drive and you look west, and the houses are 10 foot apart, row upon row upon row upon row. 2-story walkouts, looks like a wall of houses. It doesn't look like a monument community as the monument sign behind you looks like of a very nice community to live in. The Planning Commission has the ability to dictate that. I get what the engineers say. I'm asking the commission, when you're looking at all of your projects, to say, what does this really look like? How does the traffic want to flow? Example again from other communities I've lived in. We had the traffic study that came in for, we don't need a stop sign at this road that's a minor collector where kids walk to school. Because the traffic study said for the next 5 years, we don't need it because the average, and that's the way the engineers do it, what's the average traffic flow per hour for that intersection? Oh, it's 14 over a 24-hour day. Okay, it wasn't 14, let's call it 100. Yeah, but between 7:30 and 8:30 when school's on, it's 500 cars. That's when you need the stop sign. The county wasn't going to put that in. We had a high school going in on a major state highway. They didn't want to put a stop sign in. You know when they put the stop sign in? When the dump truck killed the girl on the way to the high school. Traffic hadn't changed. So that's why I'm asking the commission to say, engineers, that's great. Consultants, that's great. We, as the community, get to dictate what's important to us. Not the consultants, not the engineers. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Robbins. Anyone else have any comments? At this time, we're going to hear any reports or communications from us, from the commissioners who may have something to say, and then the planning staff may have some announcements. We'll then adjourn the meeting, and I think we have some training that's going to take place. Is that correct?
There's a work session with the consultants who will be helping the town write the land development code.
Okay. So if you want to hang around, you may do that. But that's the end of our business. Anybody on the commission have any announcements to make? Staff.
I have a couple. So at Monday night's Board of Trustees hearing, we did get a proclamation approved by the town, signed by the mayor for Community Planning Month. Community Planning Month is recognized across the country for the month of October. And so there was a public proclamation read. It did publicly thank the planning commissioners, and so we did, I believe, provide you all copies either up there, or I think there's some extras in the back. So we just wanted you to be aware of that. We understand, what all we ask you all to do and to be aware of and to help us with, and so we wanted to thank you for that. And so like I said, that was read at the board on Monday night. That was the main item I had for you. Also, just moving on a little bit, our next meeting will be November 13th. We do have business scheduled for that meeting, so please plan to attend if you can. I do have a couple other things as well, kind of going back to my reports and communications. I'm going to be working hopefully between now and the next board meeting, which is only a couple of weeks away, to appoint some additional commissioners to serve with you all. So several of your colleagues' terms are either up and they have decided not to ask to be reappointed. Commissioner Dick has served his full 4 terms, maybe a little bit plus. So he will not be reappointed either. We have heard from, have we heard for sure? Commissioner Lushnat that he may have some employment reasons that he may not be able to continue to serve. And so I say all that to say there are several, at a minimum, there are several seats sort of available. So I would look to be appointing those. I would like to appoint them at this next meeting in October. Those appointments won't be effective until January 1. So I don't want anyone to, be offended or why are we getting all these extra people? It's simply because right around the holidays, sometimes our meetings get a little bit crazy. And so I just like to get that business taken care of if we can a little bit early. So if you start hearing any of that, I wanted you to hear it here first. Know why you may have some additional new commissioners coming up pretty soon. So it'll be really important for us to keep this full commission, right? We have a full commission right now and we still have some empty seats as we start with this land development code project. Right, we will be coming to the Planning Commission often, giving updates, looking for feedback and things like that. So we want to be sure that we always have, a full seated commission so that we can keep moving that project forward, right? We've waited a long time for that project, so we're really excited to work on it and get that going. I believe those are all of my announcements for you.
On that note, Jennifer, I will be moving about a mile away from where we currently exist, so April of 2020, I will no longer be within the town limits. So please consider that in your calculations on commissioners.
Or are you planning or willing to serve until that time?
Yes,
or,
I'll stay
okay,
put,
okay.
Per guidelines, since I'm moving out of the town boundaries.
Sure, at the time.
I'll still be in Tri-Lakes, I was just on the other side of the street, so I'm out of the line.
Right. So we would appreciate, your service until that time.
Yeah.
Certainly, as you all talk with, friends and neighbors and things like that, that you think may be interested, encourage them to, put those applications in, just so that we have, sort of fallback folks when these things happen. Like I said, because it's so important for us to have, the full commission so that we can keep these meetings going, right? Keep our development requirements, our requirements to hear development applications moving forward. So, but thank you for that note. We will certainly make note of that as well.
May, June 2020?
April, May, right, depending on how the weather goes.
I'll keep it updated.
Fair.
Very good. Well, our meeting is now adjourned, and we'll begin our workshop session.
Okay.
But I might mention to the audience, if anyone has an interest in serving on the commission,
Yes, please.
this obviously would be a good time to put your name
Yep.
in the hat at the staff office.
The application is on the website. And if we are officially adjourned, if we could have just maybe a 5-minute break to sort of get the room maybe a little bit reset up, get everything loaded for the consultants to be able to begin their initial presentation to you. Okay, we're officially adjourned, okay?